Hey UConn Nation, it's KK Arnold here. If you're looking for the latest UConn women's basketball content, go subscribe to Listen Up to Phil and Ryan. Go Huskies!
Hello and welcome back to Listen Up. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday morning, March 26th. Thank you for waking up with Listen Up as we just learned yesterday about the JuJu Watkins injury. Unfortunately, she tore her ACL during the Trojans' second round game. So unfortunately, they will be without her for the remainder of the season and for the tournament. We have Stephen A on the screen right now from First Take on his take on what this means for UConn and how he thinks and believes that Paige Bueckers now has to be box office for UConn for the rest of the season. Take a listen to this.
Because it's not just about winning games, losing games. It's about people being box office and being star attractions. And JuJu was definitely that, along with Paige Bueckers. Now it's Paige Bueckers, and now you got to look at her because JuJu's not there. Everybody's going to be looking for UConn, but with UConn, it starts with her. That's who you're looking at, and so that's what the expectation is going to be now. Simply for us to be as intrigued as we anticipated we would be, because we knew what JuJu Watkins was going to bring to the table.
And, obviously, this is a terrible injury, and prayers up to JuJu Watkins. I hope she's able to fully recover and come back at some point next year. Seeing her knee buckle like that, just a terrible injury. Unfortunately, here at UConn, we know all too well about the ACL injuries because Paige and Azia both had to recover and come back from an ACL tear. So it sucks for USC because obviously they had championship aspirations, and they were on a collision course, like Stephen A mentioned, to face Paige and UConn again in the Elite Eight. And we've been referencing that ever since the tournament started. A lot of people have been talking about it and looking forward to seeing Paige and JuJu go at it again. But unfortunately, we won't see JuJu out there. But if the Huskies and Trojans do still meet in the Elite Eight, I think it's still going to be a great game, and people should still watch it. It doesn't really make sense to me to not watch it just because Paige and JuJu won't be on the court at the same time. These are still two great teams with great players and coaches on both sides. So all the basketball fans should still tune in. And the last thing I wanted to say is what Stephen A said about how Paige Bueckers needs to be box office now that JuJu is out. Paige Bueckers, in my opinion, has been box office for the last 4 years. She's had to overcome a couple injuries of her own, and these past 2 years have she's been playing incredible. She just doesn't get talked about as much because she doesn't take 30 shots every night and score 30 points. But we all saw the game that she played Monday night, and that was her best performance by far this season. So you can count on Paige Bueckers being box office for the remainder of this season and for the remainder of UConn's tournament run.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, what I don't love is the JuJu Watkins injury. And man, look, my prayers and thoughts go out to her on this Wednesday morning as we learned of this. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, I guess. The alert went out about yesterday morning about the JuJu Watkins injury. But look, let me tell you this, Ryan. I think it's time to make it publicly known. Now, what does it matter? What does it matter? What does Ryan think? What's that matter? What does Phil think? What's that matter? What really matters is what unfolds before us on the court. On the court, right? We're almost to the finish line. And the thing is, I'm going to tell you, Ryan, we had multiple phone conversations, privately, you and I think it's finally time to. I'm not saying it's just because of the Watkins injury, but I think it's finally time to come forward and just tell you and everybody else what we've been talking about on the phone. Yeah, Ryan and I talk, when we're not on a podcast. Breaking news, right? Are we allowed to do that? Yes, we are, Ryan. But let me tell you this. What have I been telling you? And I know you're shaking your head, yes. I've been telling you, Ryan, I think USC has it. I told you that back in their conference tournament. I think they will be national champions. Now, I wasn't doubting UConn. I wasn't doubting UCLA because, again, this is March. Unfortunately, I can count out USC totally. But more importantly, for what you and I talk about is Paige Bueckers. We talk about the UConn Huskies women's basketball team, and I agree with you. I agree with you. Stephen A., he said it right, but Stephen A. forgot to mention, didn't he, about all the past years that Paige Bueckers has been box office, right? And I think mainly, I'm not beating up Stephen A. for his comments, but what he is basically saying, I think, is for that viewership to keep coming. Because now, Ryan, are they really going to tune in like they would have for JuJu versus Paige? I don't know. I don't have that answer. The game hasn't happened yet. We expect it to happen still, USC and UConn, right? But it hasn't happened yet. And I don't think the viewership will really be there, unfortunately. That's just the way it goes. Now, if it is, it's because of Paige Bueckers, right? That's what Stephen A. was getting at. So again, Ryan, not only that, but with the experience, here's my point to you here. With the experience this morning, talking about UConn, the experience they bring in, with the great defensive hustle from KK Arnold, the energy she brings, Jana Al-Alfi, how she's heated up down low, right? With the new addition, Caitlin Chen on the roster now. Sarah Strong is not playing like a freshman. All right, let's just throw that out there now. Sarah Strong is playing like a 4 or 5 year veteran. Okay, so Caroline Ducharme returning, Az Fudd, who's returning. We just had that video yesterday. Who's returning for another year. She hasn't had enough of UConn yet, right? She's returning again, and then you have Aubrey Griffin returning. Ryan, and then of course Paige Bueckers being box office, like you said, she already has for the last 4 years or whatever. You have Ali Zabel, but she hasn't had a lot of playing time, right? You have Morgan Shelley. You have, how about Ryan Ashlyn Shade, who can take over at any time? She's had some nice layups here every now and then. My point is, Ryan, this is UConn's tournament to lose. All right, I know what you're thinking, and I know what everybody is thinking right now. It's no secret. South Carolina, UConn in the final. Okay? If that comes true, I'm not apologizing to you or anybody else. UConn has got to prove. What do you think about this, Ryan? UConn has got to prove that last win against South Carolina was no joke.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and it's certainly, I certainly think this injury does hamper kind of USC matching up with UConn. I think like I said, it's still going to be a great game if both of these teams make it past their Sweet 16 matchups. But I certainly think the matchup favors UConn a little bit more now with USC being without JuJu. So, but yeah, I mean, both the UConn and South Carolina would obviously still have very difficult Final Four matchups. If it goes chalk, you're talking about UConn facing UCLA, South Carolina facing Texas. But I completely agree with your point. What was a 29-point victory when UConn went to South Carolina. I mean, the Huskies finally got everybody healthy together on the court. They had a ton of momentum going into that game, and it kind of all just came together at one time, and we kind of just blew South Carolina out of the water. So it definitely would be fulfilling, I think, at the end of the year to have those two teams back in the national championship. And South Carolina, I mean, that's who Paige lost to her freshman season, was the Gamecocks. So I think it would be very fulfilling for Paige Bueckers to lead UConn back to the promised land in the title game, and to prove that loss was no fluke early in the season, and bring the championship back home to UConn.
Now, I think you would agree, Ryan, that if we have that matchup in the national championship, South Carolina and UConn, that's not going to be the game that we saw earlier this season. All right, that's not. And take me back, remind me, the video we had, was it Elle Duncan on ABC's Good Morning America? I think it was her. Don't hold me to it. I think it was her. I watched the whole interview. I think she brought up the fact of how South Carolina, obviously, how good they still are. Let's not just go and say, yeah, UConn's blowing away everybody all of a sudden. No, all right. But let's remember what Elle Duncan said. I'm glad she brought it up. South Carolina is awake. is a way. That's the only problem in sports. I don't know what your take is on this one. Everybody else, subscribe, like, comment. What is your take, Ryan? When, yeah, of course, great. You beat them on the road. You went in there. You did your thing. You even told me, Ryan, in any sport, it's so hard to beat a team for a second or third time.
Yeah, yeah, I do always say that. Yeah, it's very hard to beat the same team twice in a season. I think I do remember L. Duncan uh, bringing that up about, South Carolina as the
They're
champions
awake now
until.
because of what UConn did to them, right?
Yeah, I mean, until somebody knocks them off, the Gamecocks are
Yeah.
still at the top of the women's basketball world. So, I mean, it definitely won't be the same game that it was back in February. That's for sure. I think South Carolina and Dawn Staley would come to play in that championship game, and UConn will definitely have to be ready for the punches that they bring and the different things that they're going to bring to their game plan to try to stop some of what UConn was able to do, like really gash them from the outside and hit all those threes and really build a big lead up early in that game. And the Gamecocks just couldn't really dig out of that hole. So now we can look forward to hopefully that championship matchup. Obviously, got to win a couple games. Both teams do before they get there. UConn's obviously still got a couple tough games to go in the tournament before they get to that national championship game.
I agree with you. Let's not look too far away. Here we are talking about national championship versus South Carolina. All right, Ryan. Hey, look, again, shout out to JuJu. I have faith she will be back stronger than ever. But again, let's just realize how great of a player that we are losing in women's college basketball. Ryan, let's go over to the index before we get into comments from our subs. This is the most points in first two Division One seasons all time, mind you. Kelsey Mitchell, JuJu Watkins, Caitlin Clark, and Cheryl Swoops. And if you remember, Swoops started her career at non D1 South Plains from 1989 to 91, I believe. So, Ryan, it just goes to show you what kind of a player that we are losing. We wish, I wish, I wanted to see UConn play JuJu and USC, but not this year. Let's go over to Jason D'Amico. He said, first, to all the USC fans out there, I just want to say how sorry I am about JuJu. She may not be a Husky, but UConn fans know and acknowledge greatness when we see it, and JuJu is right up there with the best. I hope she recovers easily and quickly and comes back stronger than ever. The game is so much better with her in it. Peace.
Yeah, very well said. I completely do agree with that. JuJu was a big part of the reason why the viewership was definitely up alongside Paige Bueckers and others this season. But yeah, I think, something that Stephen A also said during that first take was just how much JuJu has done, not only her freshman season, but now for her sophomore campaign or her second time around. And I really don't think she's gotten enough credit for what she's been able to do. I mean, scoring more points than what Caitlin Clark did through two seasons is pretty incredible, and to be second on that list for the first 2 years is even more special. So she definitely deserves a lot of credit. Had two very great seasons, and like I said, I just hope that she can fully recover now and hopefully return at some point next year, or if not in the near future.
One more. Giannis Press said, sorry to see JuJu injured, but even with Kiki, UConn will now make the Final Four. Sorry to see JuJu injured, but even with Kiki, UConn will now make the final. If the universe shines in UConn's favor, the Paige Buckets story will surely be a movie one day. Go Huskies. Yeah, they want that documentary out already, Ryan, of that national championship in Paige's final season.
Yeah, it would be a fun one to watch. That would be a very good documentary to see. Hopefully, we can finish that story and it can happen one day. But yeah, I mean, Kiki Arifin had a wonderful game last night. I think she scored 30 points, maybe more than that. So she definitely went off. So, like I said, I think it'll still be a close game if these two teams still match up. UConn will definitely have their hands full because USC still has a lot of talent, but obviously they're gonna have the one up without JuJu in there.
Yeah, and that was my question to you and everybody else. Like, comment, and subscribe. Kiki or Ethan, or you have Talia Van Olhofen. Who takes over in your opinion with JuJu done?
Yeah, I think it has to be Kiki. I think, them getting her in the transfer portal and, she was supposed to be that 1-2 punch alongside JuJu. So I think she's definitely going to take the reins now. It'll be interesting to watch them now in their Sweet 16 matchup and see what they kind of look like now as they get, one game without JuJu before they have to face UConn. So it'll be interesting to watch them in the Sweet 16.
It'll be interesting to get Ryan's prediction tomorrow, too, on Listen Up as Oklahoma faces UConn in the Sweet 16. And we'll have the last check in for you tomorrow evening. Phil and Ryan on Listen